Okay, now who we got here? How many of you are total beginners with Horizon 2020? Okay, I think that's my audience. Okay. Now, a national contact point, these are people in Ireland representing Horizon 2020. Enterprise Ireland has about 25 people. So if you're interested in the environmental program or the social science program, who's your national contact point? So I need to give you the websites for those. Now, research support staff, these are people in the universities. We don't have anybody here. So every university and institute of technology has a person dealing with advising. So if you're in Sligo or Letterkenny or wherever, there's a local support office there for you. Now, to compare structural funds to Erasmus Plus, you hear all these words, and are they the same or different? So I'll begin by looking at those particular things. We have a few companies and regional bodies. Now, we don't allow consultants in our course, and you see copyright in the notes. That's to stop people using my material as training material. But if you want to refer to anything I say today in your reports, just mention our name or our website or whatever. You're welcome to use anything. And because Dermot will be putting it online, you can watch it as many times as you want. If you want to go to sleep some night, my other daughter says, it's a good thing to watch, you know. So now, you've all got, I've seen most people are getting a book, so that's great. I think Mary's in my office sent about 20 books. And the book is about writing the proposal, but the first chapter, or the first two chapters, is what I'm covering here. Now, let's look at the European Union. It was set up in the 1958-57, they signed, to maintain peace in Europe. Then, once peace was there, it was about stability, and then on top of that, you get growth. Now, what we hear today is mainly about the growth, but the fundamentals of the European Union is peace and social stability, which is really what a lot of you are doing. So if you look at these quotations here, John Hume said that the European Union has been the most successful peace process ever. Now, if a country is joining the European Union, look at all the things that they have to meet. Stability, democracy, rule of law, human rights. These are the things that you do. And I just added this is not in your notes actually, came across it last week. The Lisbon Treaty, which is the current treaty, the Union shall contribute to peace, security, sustainable development, solidarity. So, in other words, the core of what's going on in Europe is what you're doing. But when we look at the media, they talk about prosperity and growth and so on, but that's assuming that the other two are in place. So sometimes they forget that, and we see what happened by forgetting that in the last couple of years. So they're going back to the drawing board by making sure that if we're doing research, that we're also looking at the bottom, at these kind of topics, not just about making Europe leader in technology and so on. Now, let's go back to the basics. 28 member states come together and they agree a treaty. Now, the treaty defines the areas that they're willing to cooperate, things like research, renewable energy, water quality, but they also agree on where they don't cooperate, and one of them is health. So if you ever want to know what would Ireland be like if we weren't part of the European Union, look at one of the areas that we don't have to report to Europe on. So we have to report on the environment, on energy use, and water quality, but health is one area, education is another. Now, they do look at lifelong learning, but things like primary, secondary education, those are what are called national competences. But they agree to cooperate on areas. And if they do, they make a policy. Now, there are two ways of implementing these. If it's water quality, they can say, we agree to cooperate on making sure water quality in Europe is at a certain level. And then they make a law saying, you must have your water at a certain quality. And if we don't, we fine you. So that's why we pay fines to Europe if we don't meet environmental legislation, because we agreed to do that. So it's like a kind of a whip method. But then things like rural development, you can make a law saying rural development or we'll deal with aging society. You can't make a law saying you're going to do that. So what they do then is they say, let's have a program. It's like a carrot. we give you money if you go in this kind of direction. So whenever you see money coming out of Europe, it's always there to support policy. Now let's look at some of the examples here. These are examples of different ways that the European member states agree to cooperate. They agree to cooperate on research and innovation, and this is where Horizon 2020 comes in. The financial cycle in Europe is a 7-year cycle, so it's currently 2014 to the end of 2020. You have social funds to implement the social policies. Now, education is about lifelong learning, so that's where Erasmus Plus is a parallel program to Horizon 2020. For the cultural people, there's some creativity people, there's a program called Creative Europe. Are you active in this? So it's not part of Horizon 2020, it's parallel to Horizon 2020. And then for the local authorities here, you have structural funds, which are about helping developing the regions and so on. Now, up to about 5 years ago, if you went to Brussels, these were all like little kingdoms. The Erasmus people didn't talk to the research people, you know, and they were wondering who was taking my budget and so on. But one of the big trends in Europe today is they want to make sure that people are bringing all of these together to address a bigger picture. So you said you did Leonardo and it finished and we went back to our desks. Now they want to make sure that if you're doing research, it's linked to Erasmus, it's linked to regional funds, and that's one of the big changes that's happening. So in the next 2021 period, they want structural funds, and they want structural funds and research funds working together. Now there's something new happening in Brussels. They want European funding and national funding working closer together. Now in research, 85% of all the funding in Europe is spent by national governments. And Europe spends about 15%, but again, they're like two different pockets of money, let's say. But now they want to make sure that whatever's happening at European level, it's synchronized with the European level. So I want to show you how that's going to affect things in general. So if you're applying, say, for national funding, and you're applying for European funding, before, they didn't even know what was going to happen. But now you're doing the two things. You have the national funding, you're applying for European, you're doing national, and the whole thing is like this. Now the problem in the past was the call came from Brussels and you hunted that money. Then the call came from Ireland and you hunted that money. The real trick is we're going that direction. The money follows you. That's a much healthier approach. So if you have a plan and you're coordinated and we're saying we're going to develop a strategy for dealing with aging society and disabilities, and we have the plan, now adapt your program to our plan. That's what the clever ones are doing. So I want to show you how that's doing. So if there's a group in Brussels debating about aging society and they're putting forward this mission and the funding is going to be built around that, why aren't you at the table? So if you get in early in the debate, you know exactly how to do it. So this is what I want to teach you, is to see how this works.